3 meals a day isn't natural. It isn't ancient. And it definitely isn't biology. It's a work schedule tattity, handed to your great-great-grandparents by factory owners and never given back.
For most of human history, hunger belonged to you. Then, one by one, someone took it.
Religion, ships, factories, and a cereal company that convinced a civilization skipping breakfast was dangerous. This is the story of who controlled your hunger tag and how they did it so completely it now feels like nature. And by the end of this, you will never look at your daily eating schedule the same way again. Before we get into who took it 5, let's understand what was actually taken. Your hunger, in handy, your actual biological hunger, can handy, doesn't run on a clock. It runs on hormones, cortisol, ghrelin, leptin, light and darkness, body temperature. None of your internal chemistry naturally produces 3 eating windows per day at fixed times. So when did 3 meals a day actually start? Not with ancient humans. Not with doctors.
Not with ancient humans. Not with doctors. Not with nutrition science.
The eating schedule you follow today came from 5 distinct historical forces, each one overriding the one before. And each force thought it was doing something completely different. The Navy thought it was solving logistics. The church thought it was enforcing moral discipline.
The factory owners thought they were organizing labor. The cereal company thought it was selling health. None of them were thinking about your hunger.
Three meals a day is not a diet plan. It's the fossil of an old workday.
Let's go back. 23,000 BCE. The shores of what's now the Sea of Galilee in northern Israel.
Archaeologists found the remains of small, brush-walled shelters, each built around a central hearth. Scattered around those hearths stay evidence of more than 140 different plant species. Seeds, nuts, root, wild grains.
Plus bones from birds, fish, deer, and small mammals. The people here were hunter-gatherers. They didn't eat 3 meals a day. They didn't eat 2. They didn't eat on any schedule at all. They ate when the hunt succeeded and went hungry when it didn't. Some days were feasts. Some days were nothing.
Eating wasn't a routine. It was a result.
The very concept of a structured eating schedule would have meant nothing to them. The world decided when you ate. For the vast majority of human history, hunger was negotiated with the environment, a pori, not managed by a clock.
Then, around 10,000 BCE, something changed that restructured human life more completely than almost anything else.
Agriculture emerged in the Fertile Crescent, Teye, modern-day Iraq, Syria, Turkey, Iran. And with it came a revolution that had nothing to do with food quantity buffets and everything to do with food control.
For the first time, humans could make food stay in one place. You planted it. You waited. You harvested it. And it was there.
People stopped moving. Permanent settlements formed. Daily routines emerged. For the first time, the question wasn't, did we find food today? It was, when do we eat the food we already have? That shift opened a door that would never close again. And the first forces to step in were morality and religion.
Here's something most videos on this topic get wrong.
They tell you ancient civilizations had structured eating. True. But what they miss is why those structures existed. Before clocks, meals were controlled by morality. Egypt typically ate 2 meals, a light morning meal and a heavier evening meal.
Bread and beer in the morning. That was it. The number reflected what daylight allowed and what work rhythms demanded.
The ancient Greeks had something closer to 3 meals. A small morning meal called akratisma, which was basically bread dipped in wine. Then ariston, then a midday meal. Then deipnon, then a larger evening gathering.
3 meals pass, technically. But not everyone ate all 3, and none were time-locked events on a rigid schedule.
Then come the Romans. And this is where it gets strange.
The most organized civilization the ancient world had produced, military precision, complex legal systems, infrastructure that still exists.
You'd expect these people to eat 3 structured meals a day, right? They didn't. They thought eating more than once was immoral.
Historian Caroline Yeldham explains they were obsessed with digestion, shade, believed multiple meals were a form of gluttony.
Their main meal, tars the sinaham, eaten at midday. There was a tiny morning snack called ientaculum, barely food, more of an afterthought, unreal meal. That was the Roman standard, and that philosophy dominated European thinking for centuries after Rome fell.
Then the medieval Christian church picked up exactly where Rome left off. Eating before morning mass was considered sinful. Breaking your fast before you'd prayed and worshipped? Gluttony. Weakness.
The church didn't just discourage breakfast. It attached shame to it. So by the 1400s, most ordinary people ate 1, maybe 2 meals a day. Not because biology said so, because morality did.
Hunger, for centuries, was a religious and moral question before it was anything else.
But then a group of European settlers sailed to the Americas, and what they found would trigger a collision that changed everything. When European settlers crossed the Atlantic, they expected to find people who ate like them.
They didn't.
According to historian Abigail Carroll, author of 3 Squares, the settlers were genuinely unsettled by what they found.
Indigenous communities fasted when necessary, ate generously when food was abundant, adjusted their intake with the seasons. They followed no fixed daily schedule. Hunger was governed by nature, community, and the land. Exactly as it had been for thousands of years. The Europeans called this uncivilized. That word matters. They weren't judging on nutritional grounds, they were judging on cultural and moral grounds. And that bias, scheduled eating equals civilization who, would help export the 3-meal structure to every corner of the world Europe touched.
But it still didn't explain where 3 meals actually came from in the first place. The clearest early example of 3 structured daily meals as an institution comes from military and naval life.
Large groups of men doing grueling physical labor had to be fed on a schedule, not because anyone figured out optimal eating frequency.
Because logistics demanded it. You can't run a ship if half your crew is hungry and half is full at random intervals.
So military and naval operations began formalizing predictable feeding schedules built around labor, watches, and duty cycles.
A morning meal before work, a main meal at midday, something lighter in the evening. 3 predictable fuel stops.
That logic was powerful. But it was still confined to ships and barracks.
What brought 3 meals to every family, every city, every ordinary person pined, was something far larger than any navy: the Industrial Revolution. Starting around 1760 in Britain, the Industrial Revolution did something that had never happened before. It forced millions of ordinary people to organize their entire existence around a clock. Before this pay, the schedule followed the sun.
Before Kai, time was loose, human, flexible. Then the factory happened. You clocked in at a fixed hour. You clocked out at a fixed hour. You had one break, days, tack, in the middle of a 10 or 12-hour shift.
Breakfast before the shift. Lunch during the midday break. Dinner after work.
Stop and feel that for a second.
The factory didn't just organize labor. It organized appetite. It took human hunger, Huntsif, something wild and personal, negotiated with the environment since the beginning of our species.
And it put it on a clock, 3 times a day. Every day. Because the machine needed it that way.
3 meals a day wasn't discovered. It was scheduled.
And something else shifted at the same time that most people never think about.
Before industrialization, the main meal of the day was eaten at midday. True in ancient Egypt.
True in Rome.
True in medieval Europe. The biggest meal happened when the sun was highest and natural light was strongest. Cooking over fire in the dark was dangerous. You ate your main meal when you could see.
But factories kept workers busy deep into the afternoon. And as artificial lighting improved bouquets, the main meal migrated. Dinner, the word itself once meant the midday meal, slowly shifted to the evening hours. By the mid-1800s, dinner after work had become the daily anchor for most people in Europe and the United States. Breakfast in the morning. Lunch at the midday break. Dinner after the shift ended.
The industrial schedule had reorganized human eating quite, not just how often, but when. And it did it so completely tight within
2 generations it stopped feeling like a system. It started feeling like nature. But one meal was still shaky. Breakfast.
Remember what the medieval church had said about eating before morning prayers?
Gluttony, sin, weakness. That association between breakfast and moral failure had stuck around longer than you'd think. Even into the 1800s, breakfast was culturally thin. Something you grabbed, Habs, not something you sat down for. Then came a man who would change that. Permanently. And his reasons were some of the strangest in American history. John Harvey Kellogg, surgeon, health reformer, director of the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan.
a health resort where wealthy Americans came to recover from what Kellogg believed were the illnesses of modern life.
Too much meat. Too much stimulation. Too much indulgence.
His solution tend, bland, plain, easily digestible food. He believed it would calm the nervous system and promote moral and physical health. In 1894, while experimenting in the sanitarium kitchen, Kellogg and his brother accidentally produced something they hadn't planned. They'd been trying to make a soft, digestible wheat product for patients. They boiled some wheat.
Got distracted.
Left it sitting out overnight, and ran it through rollers the next morning.
Instead of paste kide, thin, separate flakes. They toasted it. The patients loved it. Cornflakes.
John Harvey Kellogg wanted to keep it as medical food for sanitarium patients.
His brother Will Keith saw something completely different. A product. A scalable, packageable, marketable product for every household in America.
The brothers split, bitterly, over exactly this disagreement. John Harvey wanted medicine. Will Keith wanted commerce. Will Keith won.
Starting in the early 1900s, the Kellogg Company placed ads in newspapers.
They sponsored health content. They backed research connecting breakfast eating to energy, productivity, and well-being.
Cereal companies didn't invent breakfast, but they turned a developing habit into an ironclad health rule.
By the 1920s and 1930s, breakfast as the most important meal of the day was so embedded that most people believed it had always been true. It was also commerce. Here's what I want you to sit with. First, Kai, morality told you that eating too often was gluttony. Then Ben, factories told you exactly when to eat. Then a cereal company told you skipping breakfast was dangerous. 3 forces, 1 schedule. You woke up following it this morning.
Now here's the part that changes how you think about all of this.
Even though 3 meals was shaped by ships, factories, and cereal ads, Cotty, your body has adapted in ways science is only now beginning to understand.
Inside every human being is a circadian rhythm, your body's internal 24-hour clock.
Most people think this just governs sleep. It doesn't. It governs digestion, hormone cycles, insulin response, fat metabolism every hour of every day. Research published in Current Biology found that meal timing has measurable effects on blood glucose, insulin sensitivity, and fat cell behavior at a cellular level.
In the morning, cortisol rises naturally. Your body becomes primed to process food.
Insulin sensitivity peaks, Kai, meaning carbohydrates consumed in the morning are significantly more likely to become usable energy, not stored fat.
Take that exact same meal. Eat it at 10 p.m.
Your blood sugar spikes higher. Your insulin response is weaker. Fat storage increases. Sleep quality worsens.
Same food, different time, completely different outcome. Your hunger hormones follow this pattern too. Ghrelin rises in the morning. Leptin, the hormone that signals fullness pied, follows a corresponding rhythm. Scientists call this physiological food anticipation. Your body starts preparing for meals before you take the first bite. Digestive enzymes activate. Chronobiologist Sachin Panda at the Salk Institute found that consistently eating within an 8 to 12-hour daylight window is associated with the key insight. It's not about how many meals, it's about when. 2 meals, 3 or 4 all can work as long as most eating happens during daylight. Breakfast, lunch, dinner pie during daylight. The factory schedule accidentally landed on what your biology can actually use. Before we wrap this up, I want to give one meal the credit it almost never gets.
Lunch.
Breakfast has its whole origin story. Dinner is the anchor of the day. But lunch is the honest one. It doesn't pretend to be ancient wisdom. It doesn't have a moral history or a marketing campaign. Lunch is a break, a pause in the machine. Before factories, the midday meal was the main meal, the biggest eating event of the day. The factory turned it into a break. No religious baggage. No marketing campaign. Just, you need fuel? Here's your window. Eat. The most straightforwardly practical meal humans have ever invented. And maybe that's why it's the most universally kept.
So, why do you eat a day? Why do you eat 3 meals a day?
Not because your biology demands exactly 3. Not because ancient wisdom figured out the perfect frequency. Not because a doctor prescribed a schedule. You eat 3 meals a day because hunger was taken from nature and given to institutions.
First agriculture,
Then morality, then colonial bias, then naval logistics, then factories.
then artificial light moved dinner to evening, and finally, a sanitarium in Michigan accidentally invented cornflakes and made breakfast mandatory.
5 forces. None of them biological. All of them historical.
Earlier I said that hunger used to belong to you. Here's the complicated truth. It still does. More than it ever has. because now we have the science to understand what our bodies actually want.
3 meals a day is not a biological law, but it's not a meaningless invention either.
It's a compromise between sunlight and labor, between religion and hunger, between an industrial economy and a body flexible enough to adapt to almost anything. It was built for factories, but your body, with its circadian rhythms and hunger hormones that rise and fall with the sun, can actually work with it.
Tonight, you'll probably sit down for dinner. Like billions of people before you, in every civilization that's come before ours. Now you know exactly why. And more importantly, Sani Hummus, now you know who decided.
But here's a question I'll leave you with.
The 3-meal schedule was built for an industrial world, millions of people clocking in, working, clocking out, doing it again the next day.
That world is changing.
Remote work, flexible schedules, people working across time zones, eating when they can, eating when they're hungry.
The most popular dietary experiment of the last decade, no intermittent fasting house, is at its core a rejection of the factory schedule. Early research from Sachin Panda's lab and teams at Harvard and Oxford suggests timing meals better within daylight hours may produce better metabolic outcomes.
So is 3 meals a day ending? Probably not. The social function of shared meals isn't going anywhere. But for the first time in 200 years, the schedule is being questioned at scale. People are waking up to the fact the routine they inherited was never designed for them. Once you know who built the schedule and why count, you get to ask a different question. Not how many meals, but when does my body actually work best? And what would it look like to eat around that time, instead of around a factory whistle that hasn't rung in a century? That question is worth exploring.
If you want more stories like this, tout, history that actually changes how you see your own life, subscribe. That's what this channel is built for. See you next time.